edition of Life is People. Well, I'm very honoured to be having a returning guest. It's been a few years since we spoke live on the screen. But I think we discussed this last time we were speaking live. I think we are fortunate to live, literally, to be in, I often thought, our grandchildren are going to come to us and say, oh, what was it like to see the actual, with your own physical eyes, the birth of the internet and the blockchain? These are two of the greatest. It's like the printing press back that went out of it. Now, it's a moral piece of technology. It's what we do with it. And again, I think that you can almost pull parallels. History doesn't rhyme, but it definitely repeats itself on many occasions, because the same happened with the printing press. There's a lot of terrible stuff was brought out about it, but equally it brought out some of the best parts of us as a human species. So that's how I look at it. I think we're fortunate to literally be in this time of great technological, like I'm saying, things that, and I know you for one, if we'd had this conversation not online, because it wouldn't have been possible, but if we go back to the early 80s and we're sitting there and we're seeing the sort of like the birth of the computers and thinking, this is what it's going to be like in fast forward 30 years time, you would, I don't know, I'm asking you, I think you would have been shocked at where we are. I mean, there's a lot of dystopia around, but equally, this is the fact that we can just have this conversation. That was not possible 30 years ago. So there's always the duality of the good and the bad. And it's like you said, it's what we as humans are going to do it. But at least we're in those times. We're not in the time of just 4 TV channels, and I think people have generally just realised that actually the narrative isn't just what some person in a white suit tells me. And that's a positive in my eyes.
I'll tell you, a lot of what's been going on in the last few years, or last 5 years, whatever, to me, it's a miracle, because I was, one of the computer guys in the 1990s, where we've realized that we had encryption, and I won't go through the stories of how we got it, but we realized we had encryption. We go, oh my God, we can wall off whole worlds. And we have the opportunity to create the world over again. And we were going crazy with digital currencies and encrypted communications and encrypted business. And we wanted to do all that stuff. And we did build some of it. We did do some of it, but it didn't take off quite the way we thought it would or should. But I go forward till now, and I walk through, Bitcoin meetups and hackers congresses and things like that. And I look around and I'm speechless. It's a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle. We were a few crazy guys. We were, just a relative handful of people who were seeing this, and nobody else wanted to pay any attention. And now I go to these places, there are hundreds, in some places thousands of people who get it, who understand, why decentralization is so important, that it's a better model of human organization. And not only do they get it, but they're busting their butts to build things. They get up every morning trying to find some new way to do something better that will make a decentralized world. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, probably a million of them. I look at it and go, my God, how did that happen? It's a miracle to me.
It is completely cool, and I think that miracles are a very apt word for it, because, like I said, this is an unknown known. We've never seen this before, and it's because it's always been, I'm sure it's been the same in your lifetime. Whatever your point was, you realise that actually decentralization would just be a great sort of platform for how the world would advance in the future. And here we are. And this is the thing about it. It's been, like you said, it's been tested. It's been out there now, and not only is it starting to work, but people are starting to realise that. This is what I'm saying. It's like the matrix shattering. It's like there is another way, people. We don't have to have this central control, and it's been proven in front of us, quite literally proven in front of us. And this is,
yes,
it's never been known before in human history, having a mass decentralized system that's actually gone.
I'm agreeing with you. It is absolutely, it's incredible. I mean, I look at, people, oh my God, all of the noise and the, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that surrounds Bitcoin and still surrounds Bitcoin. This thing survived from absolutely stone nothing. Absolutely nothing under exceedingly hostile circumstances. And here it is 13 plus years later, and it's still chunking out blocks one after another, after another, after another. It just works. And it's, here it is. Everyone's seen it, and most people see it. Oh, it's crazy. Oh, it's a tulip. It's the tulip bulb. It's a Ponzi. It's this. It's that. Well, don't you know the NSA really owns it? And don't you know this? And don't you know that? And they've gone through all this stuff, and it was all BS. And it all falls away. And once you get people who've had all of the BS thrown at them and survived it and know that it was all bogus, these people are not so easy to fool next time. One of the things with the American Revolution, one of the things that really made it work was that these people were away from power. I mean, the potentate was 3,000 miles away. And there also was a policy that later came to be called salutary neglect. And they, for a long period of time, the British Crown left the North American colonies alone. Not entirely, but from like 1720 to 1760 at least, they were almost entirely left alone. And then when, the king began to reassert some power, they said, we don't need this guy. What do we need him for? We're doing fine on our own. And once you get people who are in parallel systems, who have gone through all of this, who have been called every name in the book, and that their system is still there, and by the way, it's also thriving and expanding, what do we need Washington for? What do they do for us? They take half of our money for what? So they can call us names? They don't really help anything. What do I want them for? And once you get people in that condition who have gone through their battles and taken their scars, then you have something that can really move forward.
100%. And that's exactly what the blockchain has always been about me. I mean, obviously people immediately mention blockchain, they go, oh, Bitcoin, they say, oh, it's, and I'm like, okay, but there's more to life than Bitcoin. And honestly, I mean, whether Bitcoin in 10, 15 years is what some people, the optimistic side of it or the worst side of it, as they see it financially, it doesn't really matter to me, because we're going to see it's the underlying blockchain. It's that decentralization. It's going to be things that we can sit here now and go, this, that, never predict. But there'll be some, I don't know, some 17-year-old, like you said, who will just have an idea right now that in 5 years' time will change everything. And this is what's been unleashed to the world. And I don't know. That's what really drives me every day as an optimistic person, especially as a creative person, thinking, wow, these are really the greatest days to be living in. And especially being a creative person where you think, oh, I've maybe had a long time of just thinking things are never going to change. But we are on that point because there's, like I said, that technology's there. And like you say, like you said, I've had all the conversations with people like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. And like you say, once they become, it is like the film The Matrix. Once you sort of wake up and realize and think, well, it doesn't really matter what you're throwing at me right now. They are just an illusion. I can back away. And people, again, are marrying that. I think two things: you've got the technology, and you also sort of see the reawakening, which is what I said at the beginning of, or not reawakening, because I think it's always been there, but of communities sort of realizing we need to decentralize ourselves more. So like I said, instead of being not only being like, oh, well, I've been going by some people and officials who are 500-600 plus miles away, but even down to your local level, it's kind of like, okay, we've more neglected how's the person opposite, how's the person down your street, how talk to those people, because that's been eroded from us as a civilization as well, where you talk to people, my grandparents, and they, all they knew was They would know everyone in the village. There was a kind of, this was a butcher, that was a baker, this was a, and everyone kind of knew everyone's business, maybe because of churches and people had a common area they could mix. But that's all been eroded away from us all. But I think you put the two together, the blockchain and the rise of local communities, and people sort of see that they are being, like I say, attacked from a great force to destroy all those things. I think, I don't know, I think we could be living through a renaissance now, not even realising it, which I've always thought the people through the renaissance back in the day didn't realise it.
That's pretty much true. Yeah, once we have the things you're talking about, people, I will say about Bitcoin, more important than the technology is the community, the people who see the same goal and who are willing to work, because it matters. I mean, you got Bitcoiners that are technically rich, that are living in some little garret apartment somewhere, in some basement apartment somewhere, because they don't want to spend any of their Satoshis. And they, and they're willing to do that. These people are willing to work at their own expense. These are all the virtues that we want in our children and grandchildren. And here they are in a large number of people. Going forward, it's really important in what you're saying also about community. Westerners have been atomized over the last couple generations. And it's because centralization took over everything and everybody looked to the center rather than to their peers. And that is changing, and it needs to change more. But it is changing, and it is getting better that way. Again, Facebook needs to go. These are really social media. I know it's hard for people to take, but I call it a vampire parasite, and that's only because I don't want to use dirty words to describe it. But people need to see people. We have to start entertaining. We have to have people. It doesn't have to be fancy. Have them over and grill hamburgers in the backyard. Get your two friends on a Saturday, and you see that the old folks down at the corner need their steps repaired, and they're old and they can't do it themselves. They haven't got much money. Well, grab some lumber out of your garage and some paint, and go over there, the 3 or 4 of you, and go and fix them. In the not too long ago, up till 1980, here in my hometown of Chicago, we had ethnic clubs. We had, neighborhood clubs, and, 5, 10, 15 guys would put together their money, and they would rent out a little storefront somewhere, and they would, gather there, however many nights a week or on the weekends, and it was their little club. And they knew everybody from the neighborhood. They would play records. They would have, a dancing sometimes. They would, oh, so-and-so's got a bunch of this food. They're going to bring it over. Everybody come on over to the club. We're going to do this. We need those things. Humans love those things. That's how we find meaning. That's how we find connectedness. That's how we find the things that really enrich life. And we need to start bringing those back. More handouts from Uncle Sugar just really don't do it. They don't satisfy. We need to be humans with each other and help each other and get to know each other. Humans are amazingly creative and clever. You get people together and they're probably going to be able to help each other. So we need so much more of that.
Yeah, you're right, because one of the things about social media, and it's been driven since day one, it's all, as we know, I'm not going to get into that discussion, but it's all right having a wild, and again, I will never be a troglodyte. I'm just going to bury my head and say, right, we're going to, even if you could shut the whole thing down, we'll all move back and we're all living like a, Victorian type. No, I'm not that, I've never been that kind of person, but equally, our reach, as much as it's great that we can be connecting from Scotland to America and it's all seamless, that's great, but equally, it's knowing that, like you said, the person next door to you and having that community built up, because like you said, at the end of the day, you can't take the riches with you, you can't take anything with you. All you can take is maybe leave that idea of the wise man knows he plants a tree that he's never going to see the fulfillment of, but he knows it's there for future. It's that legacy, and that's the most important thing that we can carry through. Not money. It's those small things that we all knew, but it's been, for want of a better word, we've all been programmed into becoming consumers. You know, we, like you said, then you get down to the atomized part, and it's like that's what data is all about. It's all there just to, and for want of a better, to rape us of our knowledge, rape us of who we are as an individual. But that can all easily be broken just by having connection, having the, you know, worldwide connections. We have friends and people you can talk to, but equally people in your local area. And this is where I think we've seen this in the last 2 years. They have pulled off their mask and they think they're some sort of super villain or super power human being. They're not. And they've realized once they've pulled off the mask that you can't literally, the light will always defeat the darkness. You know, that human spirit inside of us, to what, like you say, to help each other, to want each other, to have a conversation, to be human is something that I've always seen as going to be the light that will destroy any darkness. That's a very sort of deep conviction I have, and I always have had that. And I think right now that's why I alluded to it. And like I said, like the breaking dawn, we're at that darkest moment, but humans are still, even through the darkest moments, you've seen the best of humanity. As much as we're fed in the media and the fear, people know on a instructive, intrinsic level that they are humans and they've seen the best of that. And you know, I'm sure my story of people helping each other out with, you know, food donation, I'm sure that was shared worldwide. You're not going to get that in the media because they're about fear. But on a real scale, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think we're at the, like I say, through your breaking dawn, we're not in this dystopic nightmare, but we could be at the very break of something is going to literally transform the world we live in.
Well, you know, we've been at a peak of manipulation, at a peak of obedience, a peak of a whole bunch of bad things, and I think we're crossing it now. This has kind of changed it, and once you get humans who aren't afraid anymore, who aren't intimidated, who aren't glued to a television, just, you know, getting bad news funneled into their brain, once they're not doing that, humans can be pretty darn good. Now, you know, of course we make mistakes, and of course this is a small number of us who are just no good. But humans are immensely capable creatures, and we haven't had any purpose in our life for 50 or more years. There's no reason for what we do. What's the purpose of life according to the mainstream culture? Fill your belly, fill your bed. That's it. That's all there is. And everything else has been intimidated and belittled and pushed out. Well, guess what? It's coming back. And once people want to have something more to live for than just, you know, I got a bigger bank account, or my portfolio was up 3% this year, or, oh, I got a better girlfriend or boyfriend. And, you know, it's empty. It's the life of a beer commercial. You know, after the camera's rolling and everyone gets depressed and fat. You know, it's an empty existence, and they've kept it going just because they've kept things coming fast enough. There's enough, you know, stimulation to just keep everything going. You know, get the new game. There's a big game this weekend. Are you going to watch? Are you voting for him? You know, and they keep it going. Once people pull out of it and they want to have a real life, and they want to love, they want to be loved, they want to appreciate, they want to be appreciated, they want to do something that matters, they want to, you know, be around people who care about things, not just whatever's flashing on a television screen. Once that comes back, and it is coming back, and it has come back in sections and pieces. You know, they used to say the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And it is coming back. And once this happens, the old way is done.
Yeah, I completely concur on that. Now, sort of like maybe taking a bit of a completely jolt in this conversation, but I mean, for you on a personal one, Paul, I mean, I know you've been putting out, obviously, your articles on the Freeman's respective website, which I'll put links into when we put this out. And obviously you do your little newsletter and stuff like that. But is it over the last 2 years, as a a creative person, have you found it you want to go and write more? Or have you wanted to step back and sort of use this time to sort of grow? I mean, where are you as Paul Rosenberg, the human being, at? I mean, right now, in terms of being creative.
Yeah, it has been a very interesting time. I've wanted to write more. I've been frustrated that I didn't have a voice that spread farther. I reach a pretty good number of people, but when some of these things are going on, you want to be able to tell the whole world at once, hey, wait a minute, look over here, and that was frustrating to me that I couldn't. And it was a balancing act for me, because there are very few people who are writing about the good and what we can do, what we can be, the good that's in the world, and how to expand that. Everybody you get more clicks by being negative. That's just the fact of the matter. You get more people paying attention to you if you say, look over there, he's a monster. That's how you get attention. And it's retrograde and it's unfortunate and all that, but for the moment it still works. So I very much try not to do that, because I'm almost alone out here trying to paint the good part of the cause. And it needs to be done. And the last few years I've also said, no, I have to put an article out explaining why this is so wrong. And I've had to try to straddle that fence a few times, because I felt like I needed to say certain things that needed to be said. But then again, I'm the only guy here or almost the only guy who's pointing out, no, we're really pretty decent, and we can do really well, and things can be really good. Look over here, this works. See all these people who are devoting their lives to this. This is So that balancing act was a tough one for me, because you see things going so bad, and people getting fired from their jobs and evil things going on. You want to stand up and scream. So I, writing that line has been kind of a challenge for me, and I think I've got it close enough to correct. But that's been a challenge for me.
So, the next sort of question that leads to that is, I mean, have you got another book in mind? Is that sort of something, or do you think those days are behind you?
Well, no, I have, I don't. I'm not planning any big novel. I've done 2 big novels, and they're really hard. and, but for me, they just come organically. I write a big novel because it became time that I had to write one. It was just I liken it to a woman being pregnant. It's in you, it's coming out. So I'm not feeling quite like that. I did write 2 books of theology last 2 years that I thought were really important, that I needed to write. And it's funny, because when you have the books that you really feel like you need to write, when you write them, they surprise you from beginning to end. You end up finding things and seeing things and understanding things that you had no idea you were going to run into, and things that you hadn't thought before. So those were important to me. I'm writing a series of kind of mini novels, 100-page or so books. I came up with this clever way of making time travel, not really time travel, but something that's like time travel. How shall I say, excusable under the laws of physics, if you allow me to posit, one particular thing, which is it can't be proved. So, no, it might be true.
Yeah. So
I took this little trick, and I've been running these they're just adventures for me. I mean, I would run them in my head if I wasn't writing them. where I go back in time. I went back once to 1963. I went back once to 1978. And the gig is that when you go back in time, you get to have a chance. I only have a limited amount of time in these places, a number of months. But you've got to improve the world. And if you can make that world better, the difference in charge between what that world would have been and what it became transfers to your world, to the real world. So anyhow, it's a little bit complicated, but I'll tell you what, for me, that's really important, because what I do in these books, I call them the return engagements. I got 2 done, and I've got another one that I'm working on now as I have time. But what I do in these books is I get to hang out with the people who brought me back, which is, immensely advanced scientific stuff to be able to do that. And I get to hang out with some of them. And these are people who are, 10,000 years ahead of us in development. And I get to hang out with them. And that's what it is for me. I write those books so I can hang out with advanced people. Now, I know it's all going on inside of my head, but that's just the way it works. And I write those books because I get to hang out with massively advanced humans. And that I'm going to keep doing. I've been writing a few books for homeschoolers. I wrote one on critical thinking. And I'm writing one on, I'm not sure what's going to be. You've seen these series of articles on it at Free Man's Perspective. I thought of it originally as moral education, because that's something that just hasn't been done in 100 years. But it's turning out more like, here's an owner's manual for your kid. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but I'm working on that. And then I have another one that's a nonfiction book that I don't know when it'll really be ripe. But I keep adding little pieces, and I keep adding little pieces. And it's going to be called Post-Primate Society. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that follows that. And it's just going to have to wait till the time is right.
That's kind of the mindset of most creative people for us. We're always kind of like, when's the time like, well, there's always too much, like you say, our time is precious for one another. We're not immortal. That's another start of a discussion. But when we know that there is one way out of this world. Death is still around us. You know what I mean? And like I say, we haven't got an infinite amount of time to do all the things we want to do. But that's the element of being creative. Pleasure to sort of catch up and briefly go. I think we spend so much more time. And one of my hopes for the next sort of, after all this lockdown and stuff, I'm looking forward more to the days when these connections can be made in real time. I'm not talking about some big conference where we're all sitting. No, I'm talking about the idea of having sitting around having a beer, or sitting around and having a chat and in one-to-one. And I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is to get these connections that have been forged through one of the last few many years. We're getting to see each other as people and looking in each other's eyes and just having this chat as human beings, under a setting sun or whatever. These are the things that I'm looking forward to the next 2 years, or what's going to go forward from the previous 2 years. So I love talking to people like you, but I always find it's a bit disconnected when we're on the internet. So hopefully those days will come again, when we can meet each other in person. Well, if you're ever in my corner of the world, let me know. Well, yeah, but that's a discussion about whether they're going to get us back on planes again. But that's a whole different conversation. But like I say, Paul, I want to thank you for giving me your time, because I more than most know how precious our time as creative people, and equally we're very good at finding distractions. So this is what But before I do wrap this up, I want to leave you with the final word. So enlighten us, brother. Well, I think that all of us should pay attention to ourselves and realize that we have so much capability inside of ourselves that we have
yet to touch, and to just not even have to try to, scrape and work for it, but just be aware of it. Just try to recognize it. Try to recognize the good parts of yourself and believe that they're there, because the whole world survives, the whole status quo, rulership complex survives on your weaknesses. It doesn't survive on your strengths. It cultivates and reaps from your weaknesses. So they've been so overplayed and so overdone, and we believe so much about us that was excessive and wrong. Start believing that you have some good stuff in you. I'm sure you make your mistakes. Well, gee, so do all of us. But it doesn't mean that you're inherently evil. No, we have a lot of really good stuff in us, and we need to begin cultivating it.
Perfect. That's a beautiful way to sort of end this conversation. All I'll say is life is people.
Well, they say that life is people, and that people are angels, and that angels are devils, and the devils are me and you.